Hello. Hello and welcome to Banking Frontiers Technoviti 2020 once again. And you have been having some very interesting conversations earlier about discussing on what are the key funding and financial paradigms. Now it's time to talk about what are those Fintrend Setters. Here we are going to discuss a little bit more strongly on what are the trend setting technologies that the fintechs today are looking into, and what are those technologies which are going to create a major mind share amongst the fintech as well as the BFSI fraternity in the future. Leading this interesting conversation is Sushil Zaregaonkar, who is with Ernst& Young, and he has been in the FS advisory team of Ernst& Young and a great partner to Banking Frontiers for last 4 to 5 years. Sushil, the stage is open for you to introduce your speakers. We have this session till 12:15 p.m. Since this is more of a virtual thing, we may have to stick around to the time. So over to you, Sushil. Let us listen what the Trend Setters Next are talking about. Thank you very much and have a good discussion.
Thank you very much, Babu. A good morning to everybody, and thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to speak here, and especially giving me an opportunity to moderate this panel with such eminent panelists. I believe as we've experienced in some way or the other in our personal or professional lives, today digital adoption has become sort of very necessary, and now it's a way of life. Even basic needs like getting a vaccination now is sort of driven through digital channels. I believe the financial services industry was definitely at the forefront of digital transformation, but the pandemic has obviously accelerated that. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And in this digital transformation, I believe the fintechs have had a profound impact and a role, and sort of helped the financial services sector achieve the digital transformation. I think they've been very instrumental in setting up new focus areas and some new trends which we see currently in the market. We're specifically talking about digital lending, digital payments, and of course banking. Now it's a new trend, which is banking for the millennials or the SMEs or the self-employed, which is largely being driven by the neobank trend, and we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months there are about 10 new neobanks that are set up, and many more will come in. I think while India was the financial services in India have been better off globally in terms of adopting digital payments and also creating innovation around lending, the neobank story is possibly been a bit of a laggard, and that's also essentially because of the way the industry is currently regulated. We don't have a clear understanding of how neobanks will operate, whether they will get an independent license to operate, or whether they will have to tie up with banks. And there's a lot of new model that are sort of coming up, and we've seen partnerships within the ecosystem. So collaboration and competition both exist in a healthy way, but it is yet to be seen as to how this sort of area will emerge. But nonetheless, it looks very promising, right? So let me open up the panel by taking the neobanking topic first, and maybe I'd like to bring in someone who's been involved or who's sort of experiencing this currently as well. So Indian neobanks are providing, they're sort of providing a lot of new value-added services to the millennials, right? And it is proving to be an attractive funding opportunity as well. We have seen a lot of funding being raised in this space over the last 12 months. Do you feel this is going to be a lucrative space, and do you have a view of how this is going to emerge, and whether this sort of a trend will stay ahead of the other emerging areas or spaces?
Yeah, Sushil, thanks for hosting. And I think you put a really interesting point here. There was a lot of funding happening. There was a lot of there's a lot of noise happening around neobanks. If I have to put it this way, every startup in India is a fintech, and every fintech is a neobank in India. That's how I will put it. Right. But again, there are a lot of new banks who want to come up, who are planning to come up, and who are live to, But again, there is a huge possibility for neobanks in India. If you take really the last 5 to 6 years of fintech in India, there are only two things happen. One is lending, and another is spending. These are the only two things. Other than keeping aside companies like Upstox or Zerodha or small case, or these, I'm not talking about these. These people are something doing different. Shrini is here, and I would say that I like his product. And other than these people, there are the only two things: spending. Even when you started the conversation here, everybody's talking about you. Even you mentioned about digital payments and digital lending, right? These are the only two things happen. But none of the fintechs or none of the banks or none of the financial institutions are really looking how we can get users away just only from spending and lending, and other than we can empower, or we can provide some hyper-personalized banking or hyper-personalized future. How we can help people to manage their money properly, save their money properly, and invest their money properly. So the invest part is already handled by few players like Upstox and Zerodha and other people. But what about managing money, right? So there was few PFM apps, but PFM apps will just give you they're dumb vibes. They just give you the information, right? They're not contextual, they're not interactive, they're not social, nothing. They tell you how much you spend on food, and nobody can take a decision which has already happened, right? And I'm surprised to see that even most of the people, even if you are engineers, doctors, or tier one people, salary holders with a salary back of 45,000 to 1 lakh or 1.5 lakh, they really failing at saving money, because there is no proper mechanism of saving money. And that is the reason, forget about investing. The saving itself a big problem.
Right.
And I think the banks are failing to do this in a bigger scale. So that's where the neobanks will come in, building a better banking, better user experience, better hyper-personalized using AI or ML, and understand the data and help them to cover the whole 360 degrees of managing, saving, and investing their money in a simple and smarter way.
Interesting. I think I would like to sort of take this discussion further. And Prasanna is here. And Prasanna, I think you've been leading a lot of digital transformation yourself at DCB. I think I would like to take your views on how do you think the emergence of these neobanks are going to impact or change the way banks themselves are functioning today. I mean, banks have also come up with their own sort of models like the Yono or the 811, and then there are these neobanks that are coming in. Do you feel that there's going to be a collaboration, or do you feel that there will be a consolidation, and that you'll see that the banks will essentially drive a similar story themselves?
Yeah, I think great. So thank you so much. I think Banking Frontiers for bringing so many experts. I wanted to meet together. So Suman is there and Anupam. I think I had been interacting with Anupam for quite some time. But very good question, Sushil. I think why neo banking are required, right? So ultimately that's the question when the banks are there. Or primarily when fintechs has started their most of their journey in 2014-15, and it's been now fifth or sixth year, right, where we have a lot of fintech companies who are providing services primarily in payment space, with the way it has been started in 15-16. Then it has diverted into lending model, right, which is in need of time. And these days we talk a lot about personal finance management. Some of the super apps like and some of the other super apps like Paytm converted as a bank, or we have a phone pay. I never know what phone pay will do in the coming years. So I think this is a very interesting time when we have so many banks, and some of those PSU banks are being amalgamated as some of the, like Bank of Baroda is amalgamated with two more other banks, right? So that is how something which is happening on the other side of a story, when banks are getting clubbed or consolidated, and at the same time against to support NPCI movement, right? So we are going to come up with the new umbrella entities. So wherein Tata's or Reliance's or are collaborating with the existing banks and creating that kind of a movement. So all of a sudden, when these things are happening, which is going to be helpful for every citizen of India, then why neobank, or why those challenger banks in India? And I think what we have seen globally also, typically in Asia also, there are more than 25 challenger banks that arise. In 2015 itself, China we had 5, or Singapore had a 5 license in December 2020, that too during pandemic. And in the last couple of years, what we have seen, almost 7 to 8 entities are trying to get into that neobank model. Although in India, we don't have a proper regulation around neobank. What we have is an aspiration for these fintech companies to let me be a neobank, and never know, tomorrow account aggregator comes and says, I think all these neobanks has to be aligned with some account aggregator, the way it has happened for a P2P entities, right? And they have become, all of them have become NBFCs. So, but I think it's great to see some of those companies are giving that challenge and coming up to become those neobanks, well supported by banks. And it's like a bank is there and they have different services. Like some of the banks has very good into lending or SME financing or retail banking, or some of the banks are almost everywhere. So most of the banks, they would look at, if I have a problem statement around SME, can I not collaborate with one fintech who is better into SME, who has a better product? And instead of waiting for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years to make that product mature, let me collaborate and bring those customers and provide better services to the customers with the API as a pipeline in the backend. So that makes sense for most of the banks these days. So I think that is why, instead of competing with these fintechs, even if we have a Yono or a PayZapp, so these apps are also in the backend are collaborating with some kind of a fintechs for some of those services. And today's mobile banking is a monolithic app, right? It will become tomorrow's super app for almost for many of those digital heavy banks. I will not be surprised Bank of Baroda or ICICI, DCB will come up with a different kind of a model. I think that is how, what I look at, this neobanks will come and really save a lot of man hours and bring some kind of a standardization. Say example, one neobank is already integrated with the 7-8 banks, right? So it's easy for a customer to come on that Tally application and says, I want to choose ICICI Bank today, but I think ICICI is not doing better, so let me go with some other bank. So sorry to take names. Just an example, if one bank is not really giving proper rates, you can choose another bank, provided that amalgamation integrations already happen on that platform. So looking at that angle, Sushil, I think in interest of citizen of India, it's having neobanks, that kind of structure is very, very important. And good to see some of our friends are already started their journey. One angle to look at it, how regulations should accelerate that journey in a proper way, that needs to be taken care of. These are my initial remarks. Let's hear from our friends and keep on discussing these things.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think, I would like to now bring in Anupam. And Anupam, before I begin with my question, it would be great if you can introduce as well. And then I'll sort of go ahead with my.
Hi, Sushil and everyone. I'm Anupam. I am the Chief Business Officer for Jupiter. Jupiter is into neobanking space and as well as pay later space.
Right. In fact, my question was leading to what Prasanna just mentioned. Do you, as we see a lot of collaboration happening between the neobanks and the banks themselves, do you, face the situations or the challenges where, the technology stack is something that you've developed, something that will save a lot of hours for banks to launch something, if at all they were supposed to do that themselves. But there are so many areas where there is an overlap as well. Now, how do you sort of mitigate, especially also situations where there's a need for a trust, because for example, most of the people would know what Kotak or HDFC or ICICI or SBI stands for. When a neobank comes in and launches a digital product, how do you sort of communicate the safety and the security of the transactions that the customer is going to do? So there are two folds of question. One is at the bank end and the other is at the customer end. So one is how do you manage the overlap, and the second is how do you instill the confidence in the customers to adopt neobanks?
Yeah, I think great question. I think the former is more difficult than the later. I think sometimes consumers are easier to convince than manufacturers that this is what the consumer needs. And it is not just with respect to banking industry; it is with respect to many other industries as we speak of.
Yeah.
So how I see Sushil is that it's a journey, right? And the journey had started. So I mean, journey had not started today. The journey started with mobile banking, prepaid especially, and prepaid residing outside the banking ecosystem in the entire sponsorship model, and prepaid also not having a business model to speak of from a overall scale perspective. Then UPI coming into place. I mean, wallet is also prepaid, and then UPI
Yeah.
kind of being more efficient. And then the next phase of evolution is neo banking, where the core background belongs to the manufacturers, and the manufacturer trust is being the anchor to ride on a better consumer experience. So it is just similar a lot of times to consumer durables experience as well, where manufacturer to retailer are two different entities, and there are two people who provide different levels of trust and consumer experience. So this is how I look at it, and therefore it's an evolving model. So at this point of time, yes, I will not say in the beginning when you said that neo banking has not been up to a great start, because it's not a zero and one piece. It takes time to kind of adapt, because there are too many strings whenever you hit a core banking application of the bank, and Prasanna is there, so he may vouch for it. Touch the switch of the bank, touch the reconciliation system of the bank, the entire compliance and infosec of the bank. So, whenever you're trying to kind of this is like the, if I exaggerate, so that people kind of open the eyes, it's like the Chandrayaan moment of Indian banking industry, right? So,
Right.
taking the bank out of the bank. So, if you are doing that, there will be some failures, there will be some successes, and there will be some discovery in the process. There will be some calls taken. There will be some calls which will work. There will be calls which will not work. And I think the one piece which the financial institutions, and coming from a financial institution for almost 2 decades, I can say that, and I kind of also second that, is that the entire compliance and infosec part are two anchors which, if kind of not aligned properly, can lead to a lot of cascading effects, and the baby can, instead of the baby growing into an teenager, it will kind of, we will have an early death to this entire process. So I think that's one piece which is very important, and that's the reason it is taking time. And we are, as an entity, are perfectly to fine to take that time, because we are here for long term, and we are here to build this new model. The 2010 decade, or 2001 to 2010, was a different decade. The 10 to 20 was a different decade. The new decade is starting off. I don't think so that this licensing piece and all is, if ever it happens, how will it happen and who will get it, is a more
Right.
hypothetical story. We should always believe what we have in hand and create a business model out of that. And prepaid did not have a business model, therefore it did not succeed to a larger extent. For example, direct mutual funds don't have a business model, so obviously those who do direct mutual funds are trying to figure out what is the next business model.
Yeah.
Upstock might have a business model because they deal directly in equities, and therefore they may be. So I think the entire journey, Sushil, is not just about consumers, is not just about banks accepting anything, but it is more about discovery of a viable model, and who is there in long term with respect to creating that business model. Otherwise, we will see players coming in and players going out over a period of time.
Understood. Great, great. I think you did allude to Upstox, and I think, and Srini, you're gonna be the logical next one to take the question forward. Maybe obviously you can also introduce yourself, please, because we've not had a chance to do that. I think we have two more panelists join as well, but maybe we can do that introduction later. But Srini, to begin with, I'll ask you a question. Maybe you can introduce and start. Uh, just to what Anupam just alluded to, do you think the logical next step for your sort of offering is going to be also to tie up with neobanks? And is there a strategy that you have in mind or a model that you think is evolving? Because you've already tied up with banks, I believe. You've had that model successfully run now with likes of IndusInd Bank. You already have that tie-up. Do you think the neobank tie-up is going to be something that you look forward to and that you believe will actually help grow the interest of the millennials into investing? Because we have seen that happen, and especially in the pandemic, we have seen number of trading accounts open. I think it's unprecedented, right? And I think we've seen a lot of growth there. Do you see that trend continuing and the neobanks adding to that?
Thanks for that question. And just by way of intro, I'm Shrini and the co-founder and CTO of Upstox. So these are all very great thoughts and sort of inspiration to go off of. My experience with banking is probably not as deep as Prasanna, Anupam, or Suman, but I can sort of give my 2 cents on it. Working with banks, whether as through payment providers or through more deeper integrations like with IndusInd. Starting off with the question of whether or not neobanks have something that millennials want, I definitely think that's the case. When we started stockbroking, it was a very nascent industry. The sort of product market fit was yet to be figured out. But we knew deeply that customers wanted a better user experience, wanted a better product experience, wanted a more transparent pricing model. And that's what we were going for initially. It took us a while to sort of grow that customer base, to bring that up, to polish our product. But eventually, we realized that this is what customers wanted and saw that success happen over time. And a lot of these customers are millennials. Our average age every month keeps going down, not by a lot, but when you look at the average age over time, you see that it's slowly started dropping from mid-30s to mid-30s, and it gets younger by the month. And a lot of our customers are also not from tier 1 cities, they're from tier 2, tier 3 cities. More than 70% of our customers are from tier 2, tier 3 towns. And for them, this is the first investment platform that they've ever engaged with. So they're looking at it from a fresh perspective. They're coming from a world where they have a 4G phone, they have a smartphone, they have amazing apps to do food delivery, to read reviews, to browse the internet, and they're expecting the same from a stockbroking app or a neobank. So I do think there's a lot of room for disruption in the neobanking space. A couple of things that I think panelists have already pointed out as some of maybe the niggling issues is, one, being a broker, we do have that freedom a little bit more than, say, a neobank of owning that entire tech stack ourselves. We, of course, do depend on exchanges and everything at the end of the mile, but we have that freedom, right? And getting a banking license, as people have mentioned, is not the easiest thing. So you have to work with a partner. And once you work with a partner, it's a long-term relationship. It's not something where you go through them for 1 year, you realize they don't have XYZ functionality, and then you switch to another one. You're in it for the long run. And so picking that partner becomes very critical. Making sure that that partner has the right tech infrastructure is even more critical. Those, I think, are a little bit of challenges that neobanks may face, getting that up to speed. But as Prasanna rightly said, everyone wants to give a better experience, whether it's a neobank or whether it's a bank that's actually doing all the legwork. A lot of things like compliance are huge, huge costs that people don't seem to think about, especially if you're a pure tech firm. And maybe they don't even want to get into when you're a pure tech firm. So there's a role for banks to play also. They also see that customers do want new apps, and maybe that's something that they're okay giving to another firm to handle seamlessly. And they become a bank as an API service, which I also think is great. In terms of credit card, debit card penetration, we still have a long way to go in this country. And I do think that's blossoming. For financial services, for new age financial services, the path for growth is still very wide and open. We don't have any specific plans to say get into neobanking banking as such. But I think what is important is to try to figure out what areas the customer has trouble with, whether that fits into, the fintech company's ethos of making everything simple and easy and fast, and then to sort of get into that space.
Interesting. Yeah, I think those are very valid thoughts, and the interesting point that you just mentioned, that we still have a wide scope to improve on the financial penetration in terms of digital, or for that matter, the debit cards and the credit cards. How do we penetrate in that space? But we've actually seen the UPI volume grow very significantly in the last.
To be honest, UPI is. Sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to say UPI is something that you don't even have a rival system like that in the US. So for us, it's sending money in and out has become seamless because of payment modes like this. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to lead to, because that's going to be a critical path. That will ensure the adoption of digital technologies and digital channels, happen more seamlessly as we go forward. And the penetration of smartphone in the rural areas also is adding to that space. And I think that's also giving an opportunity for new models to emerge, specifically in the space of digital cards and spend analytics, right? And I would like to sort of take the question to Pruthiraj and sort of understand how their model is, because a lot of what Shrini you just alluded to will possibly be a platform for Pruthiraj to develop their sort of models, because I think a lot of offerings around spend analytics and insights are also fueling the way millennials like to spend, goal-based settings and limit management, and also the analysis of how much expenses they're going to incur. I mean, that's an interesting area and interesting topic. Pruthiraj, any thoughts from you on that?
Sure, absolutely. So, if you see right now in the market, every bank have their own banking apps, and most of the banks, they're selling current account, savings account, credit card, or cross-selling different account of products. So if you'll see the ratio in India right now, on an average, the switching rate of the banks for the customer is on an average of 3 to 7%. And almost 35 to 40% of the customers, they have been maintaining the banking relationship with the same bank for almost 7 to 10 years. But this scenario extremely changes if you see the millennial generation, just because of their behavioral changes. Banks come up with 5 to 6% interest rate in the savings account, but if you see someone who is 18 to 30, either who is someone UG, PG student, or earning 30, 40, 50,000 living in a metro city, he doesn't have that kind of liquidity, to get that interest out of the banks. You ask them, how you manage your payday to payday. Do you know how much every month you have, how much you have to save money, and what is your inflow outflow ratio, whether it's 70 or 30? Does your bank say, you have succeeded 30% more in this month on the saving side of it, or whether you have to plan for a car, you have to save this much? So I believe right now the new banking is getting started. It's just only 1% done. And I completely agree with Anupam, the way you say, when you started integrating with the core banking system of the bank, there are too many things you have to comply with. And the biggest challenge which I feel the new banks face, working not only not with the product or digital partnership team, is the compliance and the infosec team. It takes a lot of time to align your interest on the same page, working towards the same goal. So I believe in the new banking thing we have to build, just because new banking is not something new. We are using the existing infrastructure or architecture of the bank, and we are adding a new layer of the financial management, how to make the customer's life much more easier. So I believe we have to build a contextual real-time intelligence service with not only savings account, with the integrated platform of savings, borrowing, proper spend analysis. And along with this, we have to focus a lot on the business proposition. And prepaid card, that was a failed business model for sure. And every new bank, I believe, they do have a different own business model for them itself. And we believe, there are tons of things which need to be focused upon, just because some of the banks, they believe why. So if I'll go down, deep analysis of this, why the banks are not targeting this generation, is just because they believe these people are not, high revenue generating users. So there is a lot of things, the digital first approach. Just because if I'll say on an average, a bank is losing, if they're giving 3 to 5 transactions, a cost free of month on a debit card, they're losing on an average, 700 to 900 bucks in an year. So if you can, do the NFC tokenization payment for the POS, and for, offline, we have the UPI, and with IMT, you can do the, online transactions, then you can reduce down the front load cost of the cards, and this, the shipping cost along with this 900 rupees. So I do believe not only the features is important, and there is a lot of business aspect which needs to be, well appreciated, and, the unit economics of the business need to be taken care of from the very first day. So that's something which our focus goal, and we are lucky to partner with Visa and RBL Bank. So in next 60 to 70 days, we are launching our savings account and co-branded debit card.
Interesting. I think that's really innovative, and I think something that we will see happen more more regularly, or partnerships that you're building, and also the models that I think Visa is also coming out with. I think that's going to be an interesting space to watch out. I would like to come back to Suman now, and understand, Suman. There are a lot of new models, especially on the lending part as well. The buy now, pay later. The pieces which necessarily are driven by the e-commerce space also. Nowadays, do you see a space for neobanks in that area as well, specifically because you are targeting the millennial customer sets, many a times the SMEs also, and they need the lending. Many of the digital lending products are aligned to that sort of a customer base. How do you see that space coming in, and is there any significant new trend or a model that you see emerging?
Hey, can you hear me?
Sorry, Suman.
Can you hear me, Sushil?
Yes, we can hear you. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't see much of the way lending companies and the e-commerce companies gel together, and I don't think that a neobanks or e-commerce company will gel together. But again, for example, a neobank a SME neobank can fit very well with players like Amazon or Flipkart, where they can push the Amazon or Flipkart, because they can push a current account to all their merchants. Right, but again, we will not be able to push a consumer-focused neobank for the consumers of Flipkart or Amazon, right? But there may be certain synergies between few companies. For example, a neobank can always partner with a payroll company, where they can push Finin or any other. Sorry to take the name, any neobank account as a salary account for all their B2B2C consumer customers. Right. Also, a neobank a consumer neobank can always partner with a payroll company, and they can push a neobank as their salary account for all their employees. Right. There can be multiple synergies with multiple business models, payroll companies or manpower companies, or there are multiple. But specific to e-commerce, I don't see a consumer-focused neobank will be able to partner with any e-commerce platform, I would say. Right. If you're specifically talking about lending, lending is it's the how I will say, it's the Achilles heel of the whole Indian fintech. It's the good and bad, right? Lending, everyone will be like, so everybody needs money, and it's a hook. You can always get on with the customer, just lend money for free.
That's right.
For e-commerce, it's like a perfect marriage, the lending and e-commerce platforms. But for neo-banking, we really have to explore where exactly we can fit in with the platforms. But like I said, the other platforms like payroll companies or ERPs or CRM solutions, we can always find, for example, a freelancer platform. We can always push a consumer-focused neobank on other sectors, but I don't see a synergy between e-commerce platform and neobanking. That's what my point of view is. I stand corrected.
Right. No, thank you very much for that. In fact, I wanted to take the question forward to Srikanth, because I think, Srikanth, you operate in the lending space very, very actively, and you possibly also seen the global markets and some of the trends there. Maybe it would actually be helpful for the panel to understand some of your experiences and specifically how you've used analytics or advanced analytics to achieve some of the business models that you've developed and successfully launched in the market.
Hi everyone. I think there's some problem with my video. Hi everyone, and it's I can't believe that for last 365 days I'm on the Zoom call or some kind of video conference and still and it's still going here. It's on the same mode.
We love technology, isn't it?
Yeah. The closest what let me just give a hint on the Neobank. The closest I went to the Neobank is someone when I was with Jitendra. I think we were in a kind of a 3 days conference somewhere. So someone was talking about the Neobank and someone suggested me, one of the aggregators, travel aggregator company, which is sold to Mike Metrip recently. That guy suggested, Srikanth, why don't you start Neobank? The
Right.
only thing what came in my mind when someone suggested to start a Neobank, yeah, to make wallet for people to accept the wallet, we needed demonetization. Until unless the demonetization doesn't happen, the wallet was still kind of in the air. After the demonetization, people started accepting and using digital lending. I don't know this Neobank what is required. Is there an eventful? I don't want to. I want to just. Pandemic is something which helped the stock market to grow twice or whatever the percent. The kind of tradings increase. So for such few things, the kind of events which is required. I don't know this one thing in this Neobank. What kind of are people accepting this? Because I have another company which is an agency, which we help a lot of banks to generate accounts for the Neobank. But whenever these banks they come and tell, yeah, hardly 3% are people who are using the product, not more than hard 4% of the people using the product.
Right.
So what we all, I mean, the people who are part of this new thing, Neobank, they need to see really that what it takes. Do we really need another event like demonetization or pandemic to people start using the Neobank, or there is something else which need to focus on it? That is one thought. I was very close to Neobank 2 years back. Someone suggested when Jupiter was about to launch that time, even the name was not given for Jupiter, I think, 2-3 years back. The Neobank. That time someone suggested along with Jitendra, I was sitting with both. I think you also start Neobank. That was the closest I went. In terms of the lending part, since last 2 years I started this lending aggregator platform, which we successfully able to do around 10 million applications almost, which we got in last 1.5 year, and we're aggressively growing month on month with our own unique way of technology. One thing what I understand is that we need to have variations of loans in the fintech space. Variations of loans means the two-wheeler loan, home loan, and there are different loans which has come up. Like personal loan is one of the things. There are many loans which I was traveling in US before I starting, but I did a little survey there. You need to, for example, I can take a loan to buy the stocks, and the stocks can be the guarantee for the loan. That can be promoted. An example. So, for example, if I'm eligible today, I don't require the loan, but stock market is going very, very up and high. But can I go and just borrow a loan from Upstox? That can I get a loan through NBFCs or anyone? I'm just Shrini. I'm saying. So, is there the variations of loans if you can bring in, where the people started looking that loan is not just to cover up your debts, but it is something which can make money for you also. This is something if we can work on it, in straight when try to brand those products the way home loan, two-wheeler loan is become very branded in last so many years. It is going to be a good idea and it is going to be a good thing for the people, because today if anyone taken loan means the respectable is only home loan or the two-wheeler loan. The minute any other loan is not respectable, अरे ये तो पैसा नहीं है इसके पास इसलिए लोन लिया यार, मैं इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए लोन ले सकता हूँ. So this is the only thing. This is like looking at it. Neobank, I think the companies, the banks, neobanks need to really work on how we can go to bank. How to make every user who downloaded the app or who created an account, how to make sure that it's a go-to bank. People need to work on it, because I'm a marketer, as a tech guy, as a product guy, as a agency. I have three companies to three different level, all three different categories. All three things. What we look at is how we can make our customer come back to us. That is the only one thing. So if Neobank, if it does, it's good. That's it. That's it, Sushil. So
Thank you.
thanks.
Let me take that question to Anupam, because Anupam, you've had a an understanding and a view of the banking also, and to just understand what are some of the new technologies that you think will fuel this adoption. We've heard that blockchain was something that was the talk of the town, and I think it gets discussed in every tech event in some way or the other. Do you think there are any new technologies? And I think we've been hearing a lot about augmented reality as well. Is there anything that you feel you're seeing as a trend that will dominate the way these technologies will play out?
So let me talk about the front end pieces, because front end technology with respect to a digital application on a device keeps changing very rapidly as a space. But from a banking backend technology perspective, uh, what has happened is that uh, I see basically, and I don't know Prasanna will agree with me or not, is the stack is all over the place, right? I mean, we put boxes in the banking stock, in the banking stack, wherever it was required. I think overall financial services on the retail side needs the banking stack together to come. So therefore, uh, sometimes I used to work in a fintech before also, and the developers, they used to say that ये जो आप stack देख रहे हो ना, हमको देख के बड़ा शर्म आता है, हम इसको zero से बनाना है. So similarly, whenever I see the overall banking stack, I feel that somewhere it needs to be redone somewhere. Coming not just from a hosting perspective of own data center to moving to outside data center to cloud, from a AWS perspective or from a data center perspective, but how I see it is that these entire large number of mainframe systems which are lying in isolation for a lending, for a credit card, for a debit card, and from a core banking solution and authorization, balance management, all these pieces which are happening together, and customer management happening somewhere else. Somewhere, it does not come, and the entire complexity, and Suman maybe will agree, the entire complexity actually comes because of all these banking systems within a bank lying very disparate to each other, and they being connected in some form by an ESB layer and so on and so forth. So I think that is up for change. Whether it is done by a new bank or whether it is done by an existing bank is a $1 million question. I think SFBs had that unique opportunity to go on a completely new way to do it, but I think they have squandered this opportunity in creating the same kind of stack in the SFB space also. But on the banking world, I feel this is what is it up for change, and I'm sure Prasanna will drive it at some.
Yeah. In fact,
So
actually, I would like to just sort of. I would like to just speak. Yeah,
because
sorry.
I think I do agree with Anupam. At the same time, I do not agree with Anupam, and I think that's agreement disagreement has to be there in panel discussions in a healthy way. So let's say example of a Paytm bank, the way they have done the architecture, right? It's a massive architecture and is a new architecture. And at the same time, if I ask SBI or ICICI or HDFC, which we say that they are one of those digital heavy banks, and last 3-4 years they have done massive work. I think and it's really, I agree, like the way they are really massively doing it. But now, say example, some of the PSU banks like Bank of India or some and we ask them all of a sudden to come up on a UPI, and within no time after demonetization you have to be there. You should follow all the security controls on all the channels, right? So it's very difficult game for those who has a legacy of architecture, legacy of these silo systems.
Yes.
I certainly agree with Upam. But say example, this 9-10 new banks, right? Ujjivan Bank or Sarvodaya Bank, they had opportunity to start with the new people, new architecture. That's how their architecture is there. So I think they don't have that much challenge. And so, say example, every bank has its own digital leaders, right? Who come up and revamp within a no time or within a 7 years, 8 years. Now it all depends, and that's a real one of those aspects to create a right architecture for, so that we reach out to the end user through right channels. Now coming back to
Yeah.
your original question, Sushil, tomorrow's customer will be on wearables. Tomorrow's customer will be, with the help of 5G, will have smart homes, connected cars, and we will be expecting those
Absolutely.
transactions should happen seamlessly, right? Let me ask some of banks like who has a legacy architecture, they will not sustain that kind of a journey. So every
Absolutely.
bank has to really think who is their customer, and if they want to reach out to that customer through those upcoming channels or upcoming customer, I would say machines are upcoming customers rather than human being. Human being will program there with the help of a blockchain. Smart contract will trigger automatically, and your insurance will happen for your car. So that's the future which is already happening outside of India. And that
That's
is
right.
how we have to get those neo banks, and some of those banks, and they target some certain area rather than complete bank, and come to help to the bank. I will take care of this floor out of that complete 10 building of floor for your bank, and let's collaborate and reach out to that end user immediately. So I am seeing some of the augmented reality you spoke, right? Every bank has its journey, and blessed are those banks who are with the new people, new licenses, and will do it. But I think I must say those banks like SBI, look at the massive journey they have done, and we should appreciate that kind of a journey to reach out. And they are like doing digital transformation while flying aircraft, changing the engine, as well as saying customers, please be safe. We are taking care of you, and customers also say, yeah, okay, I think we will land safely, or we are happy to take.
That's
But I think new banks
that's
or challenger has really done very good change in last 4 or 5 years. And I must say, while regulator is coming and doing a lot of these cohorts with the cross-border lending, and that is giving more momentum for this whole ecosystem. So I think we'll keep
Yeah. So
I
I
think
think
offline we can keep discussing as a
we
friends.
can absolutely, because
Let's
this is going to
respect
be
that
very
time out.
interesting. This way, I know. I would just like to close this panel with one interesting question, and it can be answered in yes or no. I just want to go and take a poll. With whatever we've heard, I think there is a mix and match. Sometimes we spoke about technology being archaic at some of the older banks, the new banks coming in with the new technology, new business models, new customer segments, connected devices. Do you think we will see a lot of consolidation and some of the bigger banks even buying out the neobanks? Do you think there will be a consolidation, specifically looking at the way the regulator operates? So I'd like to go around and take the poll. Srini, beginning with you.
I don't see any of the bigger banks consolidating. I think they have a place in the ecosystem, and I do see them thriving. They will probably change some of the practices they do or get into different lines of businesses, but I don't see them, at least not in the near future, to get into a consolidation race.
Cool. Prasanna, what do you think? You'll end up seeing a lot of consolidation with the banks and neobanks?
Sir.
I think Prasanna is on a call again. Suman, let me go with you. Yes
I
or
think
no?
I think there will be more mergers and acquisitions than consolidations. I will say, especially
Okay.
with fintech players incoming, I will see there's more M&As and than consolidation between banks. That's what I think.
Perfect. Anupam, your thoughts?
I've been always an advocate of banks actually putting capital into fintechs. I see if the space kind of has an upward movement and trajectory, I find that there will be some investments happening from the banking system into this ecosystem.
Perfect. Pruthiraj, yours?
Yeah, so I don't see that, just because if that happens again, we'll come back to the same hierarchy, same decision making, or same technology stack,
Thanks.
that age old process. And the way we are scaling the neobanks, just because we are not reluctant or dependent on the regulatory system. Once we fall on the regulatory system, it's again gonna be the same challenge. So I don't see that in happening here.
Interesting. Srikanth, is Srikanth on the call? I think he's dropped off probably. Prasanna is probably on mute. So I think thank you very much for giving us the opportunity, Banking Frontiers team. This was really an interesting session. A lot of ideas, a lot of new thoughts discussed. I know we are out of time. By 5 more minutes, I think we've crossed over the limit. But this was an interesting panel, and I would like to thank all the panelists for their thoughts and their views. And I would like to close this. Babu Nair is on the call. If at all he wants to have any closing remarks, or he's not probably. Prasanna, we couldn't get your vote, so now that you're back, you can give a vote and we can close the panel.
What is the question, Sushil?
The question was: do you see consolidation and strategic buyouts by the banks to get the neo-banking offerings?
I think tomorrow's banking, like say example, you and me may keep on going to branches, but tomorrow's customer will not look at banks as a interface to do banking. They will look at some of the neo banks or some app where they are doing for some gym or travel. All the banking experience will come on to the mobile apps. So although mobile adoption is another question, so I think consolidation is one of the example, right? UPI is one of the example where we consolidate all the banking experience under one umbrella, or BBPS, like which was happening silosely with the multiple bill desk bill payment players is another example. That way, I think India has understood consolidation is a way ahead. And I think with the right set of a digital identity, although we have a multiple identity formats now. So, example, we are driving with a DigiLocker or Aadhaar. I think that will drive to a greater extent for a country like India. I think there is some work is happening at RBI level or MITI level. How do we really bring on more and more consolidation? So I think consolidation is the only way forward to have a better collaboration, where technology like AI or blockchain will play a major role.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prasanna. And thank you all for the panel. Thank you. We'll close the panel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.